The Prime Minister's questions returned yesterday, and to say the least, it was a fiery one. However, something many of you may have missed was the Speaker, Sir Lindsay Holmes, dressing down the Foreign Secretary on behalf of Labour for the disrespect by releasing the details over the Chagos Islands in the media before announcing it in the House of Commons. As ever with Sir Lindsay Holmes, it's a great watch. We will, of course, watch and react, whilst also going over all of the latest political news from up and down the country. But first, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all things Westminster and British politics. So, as stated in the intro, in the House of Commons, Speaker Sir Lindsay Hoyle dresses down the Foreign Secretary for disrespecting MPs by releasing the details of deal over the Chagos Islands in the media, before announcing it in the House of Commons. Have a watch.
Before we come to the next statement, could I say to the government that I understand and the whole House understands that the business of the government goes on during the recess and that ministers will always need to respond to events in the UK and around the world. However, it is frustrating for honourable members on both sides of the House where major planned announcements are scheduled during periods when the House is not sitting, particularly towards the end of recess. Ministers should come to the House to announce their policies in the first instance, if that means waiting a few days. And the excuse that we may have an election elsewhere in the world is not my concern, because it is the elected members in this House on both sides that I represent. Secretary of State David Lammy.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful for your instructions at the beginning of this statement, and with permission I will make a statement on the conclusion of negotiations on the exercise of sovereignty over the British Indian Ocean Territory.
What did you make of this and the way that Labour handled the situation? Do you think they are in the wrong? Let me know in the comments. In other news, former Conservative Minister Steve Baker has thrown his support behind Kemi Badenoch in the Tory leadership race, claiming she is authentic and a true believer of the party. Badenoch and Robert Jenrick became the final two candidates in the race after James Cleverly's surprise elimination on Wednesday. Badenoch secured 42 votes, narrowly edging out Jenrick's 41, while Cleverly received 37 votes from the 120 participating Tory MPs. Speaking in an interview, Baker explained his support for Badenoch. "I shall vote for Kemi, and with a good heart too, because she's authentic and she's got a ferocious passion for what she believes." He praised her commitment to conservative principles, stating, "What Kemi does is she truly believes in conservative ideas, and she argues for them with great passion." Baker contrasted this with the party's recent approach, saying, "For a long time the Conservative Party's been all over the place, because it's kind of lacked an intellectual keel. It's forgotten what it believed and followed polls rather than trying to lead them." Baker also addressed Badenoch's stance on immigration, a key issue for the Conservative Party. He emphasised that controlling migration would be a priority for Badenoch, noting, "The idea that anyone could lead the Conservative Party into a general election without pledging to control migration and get the numbers down, that is fanciful." He acknowledged past failures by saying, "The Conservative Party's cried wolf for too long, and that is one of the problems we've had." Baker also highlighted Badenoch's potential to win back voters, adding, "She'll have to win voters back from reform, but she'll have to do more than that. She'll have to win back Conservative voters who went to the Lib Dems or went to Labour. In somewhere like Wycombe, almost half of my Conservative previous voters stayed at home in disillusionment. And people have got to come out. They've got to come back from the Lib Dems. It's a very, very steep and tough road." The leadership contest has highlighted the Conservative Party's need for renewal and a clear direction following their catastrophic loss at this summer's general election. Baker emphasised this, telling host Patrick Christys, "It's got to be sorted out, and it's going to be a long journey, tough journey, to persuade the public that this time we're going to get numbers down. I have watched closely for 14 years as Tory leaders really haven't believed with enough sort of conviction what they were doing, and the result is that the ship of state gets tossed about. So for me, Kemi is a true believer in solid conservative principles, somebody who wants renewal. She's the person for me, and I will back her wholeheartedly. In other news, Shadow Business Secretary Kevin Hollinrake has issued a stark warning about Labour's economic plans, cautioning that large public sector pay rises, without productivity gains, and potential tax hikes could stifle economic growth. Speaking in an interview, Hollinrake criticised Labour Chancellor Rachel Reeves's approach to public sector remuneration and welfare reform. The Institute for Fiscal Studies, IFS, released a report suggesting Reeves may need to implement a £25 billion tax increase to balance the books, ahead of the party's looming budget. The warning highlights growing concerns about Labour's fiscal strategy, with Hollinrake arguing that the party's policies could lead to more tax increases, more spending, in the next budget. Hollinrake's criticism of Labour's approach was pointed. He said, "They also decided simply to hand over huge public sector pay rises and pay rises to train drivers without asking for any productivity gains in return." The Shadow Business Secretary argued that these increases could have been funded through productivity improvements, but Labour had not attached any conditions. He expressed concern about potential tax increases, particularly on businesses, noting that Labour had refused to rule out raising national insurance contributions from employers. Hollinrake warned that such measures, combined with proposed workplace reforms, could damage business confidence and economic growth. He emphasised the need for efficiency and productivity gains, especially in the public sector, to balance budgets without resorting to austerity or excessive taxation. The IFS report, released today, paints a grim picture of the fiscal challenges facing Labour. It suggests that Chancellor Rachel Reeves may need to implement a £25 billion tax increase to meet pledges and balance the books by 2028/29. This would be nearly double the size of the coalition's austerity measures after the credit crunch. Potential targets for tax hikes include national insurance, pension pots, inheritance tax, and capital gains. The report states that ensuring all departments see their day-to-day budgets rise at least in line with national income would require a further top-up of £17 billion. IFS Director Paul Johnson described Reeves's upcoming budget as potentially the most consequential since at least 2010. He noted that the Chancellor is constrained by Labour's pledges not to raise main rates of income tax, corporation tax, national insurance or VAT. Hollinrake offered alternative approaches to economic growth and efficiency, particularly in the NHS and public sector. He emphasised the need for productivity improvements, stating, "We need to get more efficient. Productivity has stalled, particularly in the public sector." The Shadow Business Secretary highlighted Conservative plans to reduce the number of managers in the NHS and improve its productivity. He criticised Labour's focus on union-dictated policies, warning that proposed workplace reforms could be massively damaging to the economy. Hollinrake cited concerns from the Federation of Small Businesses, suggesting these reforms could lead to job losses and economic inactivity. He concluded, "This is what we're heading towards, and it's not good news," underscoring his view that Labour's approach could hinder economic growth and job opportunities. What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comments section below. If you've not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.